There's something magical and a little haunting about a quiet house on a stormy night. Maybe it's the way the rain taps softly against the windows, or the way the darkness seems to hold its breath. It's the kind of night that makes you feel like you're not alone, even when you are. My name is Daniel, and I'm a writer. I write stories about things that go bump in the night, about things that haunt your dreams. So when I decided to rent a little cabin in the woods to get away from it all and finish my latest novel, I wasn't expecting anything strange to happen. After all, I was a man who lived in the world of the supernatural, where everything had an explanation. The cabin I rented was cozy and secluded, surrounded by thick forests and hills. I figured it would be perfect for finishing my book. Peaceful, quiet, and miles away from the noise of the city. The kind of place where you could hear your thoughts clearly, where the only sound was the whisper of wind in the trees. I arrived late in the afternoon, and by the time I settled in, the rain had already started. At first, it was light, the gentle patter a soothing soundtrack as I unpacked my things and made a cup of tea. I didn't expect the storm to last long, but as the night grew deeper, the rain only got heavier. The wind began to howl, and the trees outside creaked and groaned under the pressure. It was a comforting sound at first, a reminder that nature was still very much alive out there, even if I was alone inside. But as the night went on, things started to feel different. I was sitting by the fire, typing away on my laptop when I heard it, a soft scratching sound coming from somewhere outside. At first, I brushed it off as just the wind or maybe a branch scraping against the window. But then it came again, closer this time. The sound was so subtle, so deliberate, it made me pause. My fingers hovered over the keyboard as I listened. The rain outside continued to fall, but the scratching sound seemed to echo through the quiet cabin. I glanced toward the window, but the rain was so thick I could barely see anything beyond the glass. I told myself it was just an animal, a raccoon maybe, wandering through the yard. But something about it didn't sit right. After a few minutes of silence, I pushed myself to stand up. The scratching continued, closer, faster, like someone or something was tapping on the walls. I walked toward the door, my heart racing. What was happening? Was I imagining it? I hesitated for a moment, then slowly opened the door to the hallway. The house felt colder now, the air thick with a strange tension. I looked down the long corridor that led to the other rooms of the cabin. Nothing seemed out of place, but I couldn't shake the feeling that someone or something was watching me. I moved cautiously down the hall, my footsteps muffled by the thick rug beneath me. The scratching had stopped for now, but the air was heavy, like the world was holding its breath. I reached the end of the hallway and pushed open the door to one of the rooms. The darkness inside was absolute, but I could sense something lurking in the shadows. That's when I saw it. In the far corner of the room, standing perfectly still, was a figure. It was a silhouette at first, just a vague shape in the dim light. But then, as my eyes adjusted, I could see it more clearly. A person, maybe? But they didn't move, didn't breathe. They were just there, watching me. My heart skipped a beat, and for a moment, I couldn't move. I wanted to scream, but no sound came. I quickly slammed the door shut and ran back down the hall. My breath was coming fast and shallow, my mind racing. Had I really seen something? Or was it just my imagination running wild? The storm outside was still raging, but inside, it felt colder than ever. I turned back to the door, my hand trembling as I reached for the handle. I was certain I had locked it, but now the thought of the figure being on the other side of the door made my heart pound in my chest. I pulled the door open and stepped outside into the pouring rain. I didn't care about the storm anymore. I just needed to get out of there, away from the cabin, away from whatever was in that room. The rain soaked through my clothes as I made my way to the car, my hands shaking from both the cold and fear. I didn't know what had happened that night, but one thing was clear. I was never going back to that cabin again. Years have passed since that night, but sometimes, when the wind howls through the trees, or when the rain falls in a steady rhythm, I can still hear that scratching sound. And every now and then, I wonder if something is out there in the woods, waiting, watching, just beyond the reach of the storm. This version is softer, with a more romantic feel, and the tension builds through simple, emotional language.